Saskia. How are you this morning?
I'm very good. A little bit tired from my late night, but...
Yes, you were like up late doing an Uber driver for the children and doing all of your chores on the Friday, so you do not have to worry about them for the rest of the long weekend.
Exactly.
Amazing. And of course, part of it was looking at last minute edits to our cookbook, 40 over 40, which I will just absolutely say up front, you just did so much of the heavy lifting for that book. And I'm so grateful that you came to me with the idea.
Yeah, well, it worked out really well. And I mean, you wrote all the hard parts. I just got to make the food look pretty.
And you did such a fabulous job. So, Saskia, I thought it would be great for us to do a little mini Mikkipedia episode because, of course, people are just as excited as we are to see this cookbook out here. And people know, people who know me know my interest, obviously, in health, nutrition, well-being. It's how I spend my life. It's my job, yes. Essentially. But they don't know much about you. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to share a little bit of your story as a bit of a primer to our book and then have a chat through some of the nuts and bolts of what we're doing.
Yeah. I try and keep it short. Where do I start? Okay. Well, the food part, I am a foodie. Like, I love food, everything about it. I love the way it looks. I love eating it. I love cooking it. I'm like, food is my love language.
Has it always been that way?
Yeah. I mean, my mum was a really good cook. In fact, she did a nutrition degree in Otago. And so we were brought up very healthy. And so I think that sort of love of savoury flavours sort of comes in childhood, really. And so, and back then it was always eating at home and cooking. And so I learned a lot of cooking from her. But I also left home really young. I left home at 14.
14?
Yeah. I started modelling when I was 14 and went overseas, and I spent 10 years travelling the world and just been exposed to all these different cuisines and food, and I loved it. I remember the first time I ate pesto in Milan going, oh my God, this is amazing.
So now my question, so as a model, obviously, there's a lot of, there's always a lot of, you don't often equate being a foodie with being a model, I guess. They almost seem like they would contradict each other. So what's your experience in that space?
I think it's just that we were so young, 14 to 20. It was like we're all just really tall, slim, and I could eat whatever I wanted. It made absolutely no difference. I mean, there was definitely pressure to be a certain size, but it didn't matter to me at that point because
you were that size.
It was like, and I would have been one of those classic people that was like, oh, you could eat everything in moderation. Like, what are you talking about? Diets? Like just not at all on my radar because I didn't need to.
Saskia, I have to ask, so at 14, you got that opportunity to be like a super successful model. How did your parents feel about just sort of like waving you goodbye? Did they come with you? Like what was that like?
They did. Actually, the first time I left New Zealand, I went to Japan and I went by myself, and I'd never left the country. Like our holidays were like camping. So it was quite a culture shock, but it was so different that it, you sort of expected it to be quite different. And they very much look after you in Japan. They drive you to a lot of your castings, and you live in a sort of an apartment with all the other girls in different rooms, and you sort of, it's like a dormitory, and you run wild in the hallways, and so it's very controlled. And then when I left, I came home, and then we went to Europe, and that's when my mum came with me, and we did a big tour of all the different countries and agencies, and she met them, and then I was like, bye, and it must have been really hard for her to leave. And I know that I didn't have a mobile phone. There would be days they didn't hear from me. Sometimes they'd hear from me and I'd be like, oh, I hate it, I want to come home. And then the next week I'm like, oh, I'm having so much fun, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, it must have been really hard because now that I have a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old, and I try to imagine what that would be like, not knowing every move and being able to find my phone and see them walking. It would have been really hard. So I have a newfound appreciation for their sort of trust, I suppose. But I do think I lived up to it. Like I was very responsible and I was coming back, having met very interesting people, reading lots of books. I continued doing high school correspondence. Some of my modelling money was spent on the very first Apple laptop, which was really
amazing.
expensive.
Yeah,
but I did correspondence and got leaving school certificate, and so yeah. I mean, it was the most amazing experience. I look back now and I just can't believe it. Really, I just flying all around the world at that age and knowing, Paris. I knew the streets of Paris like the back of my hand.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so you spent, was it 10 years modelling and then you shifted into other areas, or was it 10 years overseas?
10 years, and then I just wanted to know what it felt like to live in one place. Like I didn't spend more than 3 months in one place in 10 years. And I just, I kind of had, wanted to know what it was like to have the same group of friends and stay in one place. And I really liked Sydney. So I sort of decided that Sydney was going to be the place to stop, and I worked a little bit in fashion there for a actually a New Zealand fashion designer, Colette Dinnigan, and so it was there that I met my now husband, Max, who's actually a Kiwi, and he got transferred to London for his job. And when I went to London, I was like, right, I want to get into food because that's my other thing I love. And it was right at the time of Jamie Oliver, like Naked Chef and food TV shows, which we're all obsessed with. And I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. So I was watching the TV. When we got to London, I was like, right, got to get a job. And I was watching the TV cooking shows, and I just contacted all the producers and I offered to work for free. In my first 2-3 weeks, I was a runner on one of these live cooking shows, and just have to go get the food and then make sure that person was there. And so that was a really cool experience. And I was very lucky that the one contact that I'd made at Colette Dinnigan had also moved back to the UK, and she was very well connected in the food scene in London, and she did food PR. And she rang me up one day and said, I've got this photographer friend who's having a party tonight. Do you think you could cater for it? He shoots for Jamie Oliver, and he's really nice. And, I'm sure if you do a good job that, get some work with him. And I was like, oh, that'll be fine. And I was really nervous, but I said, oh, yep, I'll do it. And she sent me off in a taxi to pick up the keys from him on a shoot. And I had no idea of the budget. I just had to kind of guess and cook food for 40 people. But it was on a houseboat on the Thames.
Oh, my goodness.
So I had to go and get the groceries, get myself into this houseboat and figure out how to cook all this food and lay it all out and have it ready. And then he got back at sort of 5 p.m. and all the people started arriving and it was done. And it did go well, luckily. And it turned out that it was David Loftus, who's one of the best food photographers in the world. And,
oh, my goodness.
So I got to hang out with him for the next few months. And it was all, back then it was still film. Like people were still shooting on film, and he asked me to stay on and organise his photographic library so that it was, ordered if a magazine wanted a shot of asparagus, he could go to the A folder and find all his transparencies of asparagus and sell them. So I did that, and that was quite hard because it was like filing little transparencies, and the Thames has this massive tide, and so you'd go in the morning and the houseboat would be quite flat. But as the tide came in, it would rock. I'd be sitting there concentrating on transparencies, and I'd have to leave at about 1 o'clock because I'd start to feel seasick.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, but he was great. So he connected me to my next job, which was Smith & Gilmore, and they are cookbook designers. And that's where I learnt everything. I mean, they're a husband and wife team, and just, again, total foodies, just so into the beauty of food and lighting, and I got to work with them and commission all photographers and organise the studios, and got to do the prop styling and work on the sets. And I was a bit nervous about cooking then because I wasn't as experienced, and I didn't want to ruin them, ruin the food. All the pressure. There's all these people there waiting, and you pull out your pie and it's collapsed in the centre. So, but I just sort of did all the props and all the other things then. So I learned a lot about food then, but it was all just I suppose normal food, I want to call it, but I didn't really have that interest in nutrition at that point.
Yeah, so how did that sort of evolve? Because obviously you had that background with your mum who was very interested in a, healthy diet, doing the same studies, nutrition, but how did your interest
I definitely
evolve?
was like just interested in making it as yummy as possible and and not really thinking about the nutrition side of it all at all. And it really wasn't until after I had children, so in my 30s, and I had them really close together and like just insanely sleep deprived. And I kind of ended up, waking up 35, 10 kilos heavier than I was in my 20s. And just like, I don't feel great anymore. It was not just sort of the weight and not really feeling comfortable in your clothes, but just in my mind, like just felt really low kind of. And that's when I was like, I've got to, the dieting, I suppose. I tried like just cutting the calories and standard conventional diets. And as soon as you stop, the weight came back on, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't starve myself thin. I'm like, I love food. I love eating, and I don't like being hungry. I don't like feeling angry. So I have to figure out how I'm going to cook and eat myself thinner. And asking questions to different people, got introduced to low carb, and it was like miraculous.
Yeah. And what year was this around, Saskia?
This is 2017. So I think there was a couple of years of trying, to lose weight conventionally. And then it was just my 39, I was about 39. It was just for my 40th. And I just started I ate bacon and eggs for breakfast most days. Which is like, no, I don't do that now, but it was just a switch, and just I couldn't believe that the difference of like feeling full and losing weight. And it was a sort of 6-month period of just, I guess it's slow, but it still feels fast because at least something's happening.
Yeah, for sure. And were you exercising at the same time?
No, because at this point I was like not very into exercise. And I also had Morton's neuroma in my feet. So I was finding walking very hard and anything high impact. But I had surgery and had those removed. But I still hadn't quite made the connection, the exercise connection. But actually I was thinking about that, and because I was always like the most useless person in the room, and I still probably am, but I care less about it. But being successful in losing that weight made me realize that I can be successful in lots of things if I just try and be consistent.
You know what, Saskia, I 100% see that all of the time with clients, but also myself, isn't it just so true when you're able to, evidence builds confidence.
Yes.
And you just provided yourself with the evidence that you could do it. And then that confidence just transfers.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that definitely spurred me on. And then I started getting into, got to move my body, and listening to people talk about resistance training, and, I've got to give this a go. And so now I go all the time.
Yes. No, I totally admire that in you. I think I saw a post the other day, and you're up to like 550. You must be up to 555 or something now. Classes.
I had 550 today.
Oh my God, amazing. Totally. Like, I just think that's so great. Now, Saskia, but you have paleo friends.
Yes.
Like, some of your friends were very much into paleo, but did you not explore that?
Yes.
Or did you explore that as part of your journey?
Yeah, I did actually, but I didn't quite understand, how like, there's like light bulb moments. And I was very much first introduced through Mikki to paleo, and I tried, but I wasn't consistent. And I thought, you do it for breakfast, but not like for the whole week, or I didn't, and I still kind of couldn't, I just didn't quite know how to do it. I needed more of a guide, I suppose, than just being on my own. So, I guess when I first also got into, I guess the Karen Zinn and Grant Schofield's book had come out in New Zealand. So Mikki had told me about paleo, and then my sister had told me about the fat books, and I got that. But even then I still couldn't quite get my head around it. And I was like, right, I kind of need to understand more. And then I started following the Real Meal Revolution book. And I just decided, right, this is the book I'm going to cook for the whole first 2 months. And that's all I did. I just cooked from that book. And then I started to dabble in, more different food. And I think I did go down the rabbit hole of like, well, this is working, so let's restrict more and more. And I'll go a bit keto, and then I'll start fasting. And actually that's when it all kind of collapsed for me. I think I pushed it too much. You don't need to go to that level.
Yeah, interesting.
And but I was still really interested. So once it worked, once I like, oh my God, this is amazing. 6 months and I can't believe I feel so great. I'm full. I'm like buzzing around the house. I want to know everything I can about it. And I started like listening to all the experts. And that's when I came across Optimizing Nutrition.
Nice one.
And Marty and Kendall. And I think that's when I kind of came back a bit from, and realized that low carb is actually enough. You don't need to go. Some people do, and maybe that was part of my journey to get there. But just, I also, really like eating 3 meals a day, and I like not eating between them. So I am fasting between them.
Yeah,
but I just like having those feeding occasions because I love food.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, your experience is a really common one, right? And it's certainly one that I went through as well. It's like you almost have to, like, it's when you are really enthusiastic and not a zealot, but you like almost everyone in the space that I follow even has had a similar experience where they go to one end of the spectrum and then they sort of come back to this middle ground, which isn't moderation as we used to know it, but it's just the balance of making it work for you, I guess.
Yes,
and the foundations of health.
And then because I started writing recipe books with Marty, and I was logging everything in Chronometer, and you can see in Chronometer where all the micronutrients are and what's like feeding into your day. But you can see that if you go to extreme, that you're just not getting all of that variety, and so my mind works differently now when I'm thinking about food and thinking about a recipe. In my head, I'm seeing what it's adding.
Yes,
in terms of nutrition, yeah, and just that understanding too of like how much better I felt when I increased my protein.
Amazing, yep.
Like that was, because at that point you kind of think, oh, fat's the thing you add like as much as you want, but actually it turned out it was the opposite. Well, not the opposite, but it was the protein was the most important part, and then yes, limiting the refined carbs, and just eating a natural amount of fat, not really worrying about it, just however it came, but getting that protein piece was really made such a difference to me. And also it's keeping it off, because the first 6 months losing weight, actually I think you could do any diet really that works for you to lose the weight, but how do you keep it off? Like for me now, it's been 7 years.
Yes.
And some people that were on my journey around that time just haven't managed to keep it off.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's, because your knowledge changes and you keep growing and learning more.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to know everything I could.
Yeah, and I love that you had that influence from Marty, who is just such a brainiac when it comes to nutrition and food. And I do find it interesting as well that it seems in nutrition that when you've got an engineering brain, or you don't come from that background in nutrition, you don't have your blinkers on. So like I studied nutrition science, so it actually I think was a lot harder for me to come to grips with some of these concepts because they were just so different from what my university degree had taught me. Whereas if you don't have that bias, it's actually much easier, I think, to go, okay, that makes sense. And you can see how A connects to B connects to C, but it's more challenging if you sort of don't have that background, or if you do have that background. And
there's quite a few of the engineers in that space that are really, showing a different way to view things.
Totally. And of course, I mean, our book, yes. Saskia actually came to me several years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, asking if I wanted to do a cookbook. And it wasn't that I didn't want to do it, but I didn't feel the compulsion that I did this time around when you came and went, we should do some sort of protein book. Like I feel like now we've both sort of found our space in the nutrition realm, if you like, and protein is absolutely where it's at.
Yeah, I think it was like, what are we really adding here? But when we had this idea, it was like, yes, no, this is what will really help people.
Yeah.
Because the breakfast is really one of the most challenging meals to get enough protein. But if you set yourself up right at breakfast, your day is just like so much easier.
100%, so much easier. And with what you discussed with, taking keto too far and fasting too far, I see that all of the time with my clients is that they implement a fasting strategy, which then skips a meal. And by virtue of just the way that our days run, it always tends to be breakfast. But actually, that's the meal that people love the most. Like I feel so sad for them. I'm like, but like breakfast is the meal, although I do quite like lunch and dinner as well, but I
like them all.
And so to have like a cookbook that, what I love about what we've put together as well is that it's not 30 grams of protein actually, which is the number you see bandied about all of the time. But if you listen deeper to the likes of Don Layman, Gabrielle Lyon, Bill Campbell, even like they talk about 30 grams if you're looking at protein in an isolated way outside of the rest of the food matrix, that's enough.
Yes.
But the older we get, and then when you start to put the protein in with fiber, in with the naturally occurring fat, we may need to go higher. So 40 over 40 is perfect.
Exactly. And, when we made that list, which you'll see in the book, there was a list where we looked at, how many calories you had to eat to get 40 grams of protein in different foods. And most of the recipes are really at the top 20 or 10 ingredients there.
Yes.
So I tried to make sure that, we do have a lot of recipes that utilize protein powder, but also that we have a recipe for liver.
Which is amazing.
There's chicken and there's cod, and using up some of these sort of, whole food, high protein. So there's sort of one of everything. So I think we ticked off like one of everything and all that, like that top of the list there.
I know, which is so amazing. And the recipes are a collection of both Saskia and my sort of favorite recipes. Yes. And Saskia tweaked a lot of my original recipes and just gave it that sort of, you came at it with a different lens, which I really loved as well. And one of the benefits of the cookbook, in addition to it being, one is over 40 recipes with 40 grams of protein. But I think there's also that element of, we're both women in are we mid to late 40s, Saskia? I don't know. How old are you again?
Yes, I'm 47.
Yes, I'm 47 too, almost. I'm a month away from being 47. And so it's like at some point we're sort of in our late 40s, but we appreciate the idea that you can't just you can get 40 grams of protein any which way. But we also need to think about the calorie budget, because as we get older, it does make a difference as to how many calories you can eat to maintain, a healthy body composition as well. So we really put a lens towards trying to get maximum protein to the energy content of the food. And we discuss that in the book too.
Yeah, we do. And it is, that's people say, I tried adding more protein and I put on weight. And it's just, there is a trick to doing it.
Yeah. And so we brought the tricks.
And understanding that, but yes, it might have so much protein, but how much did you have, how many calories did you have to eat to get it?
Yeah.
Is a big sort of shift in thinking.
Yeah, for sure. So the book is over 40 recipes with 40 grams of protein in the recipes, and they're all pretty much with foods that you would just regularly buy at the supermarket. Yes, we do have collagen peptides in there, and we do have obviously protein powder, and egg whites might be the only other thing which might not regularly yet be on your grocery list, but
it will be.
I think they soon they will be, and they're much more available than they ever have been, which is fabulous. But they are recipes designed around foods that you're already going to be eating anyway. It's just putting them together in a smart way.
Exactly. Just sort of like, topping them up with a little bit of egg white or something just to hit that protein amount. But as I was saying to Mikki the other day, I have pre-logged them all for everybody in Chronometer. And I was sometimes cooking them for breakfast and then lunch. And I was really enjoying seeing that it was, once I added like pretty simple dinner, my day was nutrient replete, and it was like, wasn't that hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think people enjoy doing that and seeing them.
That's awesome. And with that chronometer detail, Saskia, am I right in thinking that if anyone uses chronometer and if they have a paid account, which isn't that much per month, I have a paid account and I'm pretty sure I think as a professional,
it's
and
like
it's not
dollars or something.
Yes. Yeah, but they can friend you, and we've got instructions on how to do that in the book. I need to do that myself, actually. And then they'll be able to just search and find the recipe to be able to put it into their date. So you've just made it super simple.
I have made it super simple. And there's quite a few of the recipes which we did a vegan version of.
Yep.
And I've even logged those in Chronometer for people.
That is amazing.
I've put the name there so they can see the version. And I thought I'd come on later in the week and do a little tutorial on Chronometer and how that works, because there's a little bit of detail. I mean, once you've friended me, you've got the access to the recipes. I can't see your diary and you can't see my diary, but you've got the recipes. But I'll just explain some of the cool things you can do.
That would be amazing. So that will be on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So, and in addition to obviously the release of the cookbook, which is initially PDF, however, you can order hard copy as well. So we have a printed version and a PDF version. So you'll have options to do both. We also have a giveaway that New Zest has kindly offered to help support. So if you purchase the book in the first 72 hours, then you will go in the draw for an awesome gift from New Zest, which will utilize some of their protein powders, because obviously we used a number of recipes had their protein powder in, and also, of course, a container of the Good Green Vitality, which is one of my favorite greens because it does have the adaptogens. It is a broad spectrum multivitamin, has very good quality organic ingredients, and it is a top-notch product. By the way, better than AG1. So we're super excited that New Zest is on board supporting us as well.
Yeah. And a couple other features in the PDF version of the book is the meal planning page and shopping list page, which you can print out and use.
Amazing.
And also an index, I suppose, to Mikkipedia, to all of the different interviews you've done, Mikki, that have been my favourites, different protein experts, and anything to do with the subjects we've covered in the book, just so if people do want to listen to more information, they can just click to the link and find them.
That is awesome, Saskia, and your attention to detail has been an absolute godsend through this entire process, because I'm very much a big picture person, and you really just made it so much easier than I could ever have imagined. So thank you so much for bringing this to life. It's amazing, and I'm so excited. And I'm also super excited because you put book 1 at the top. So,
yes.
Seeing how this goes, let's see, there's more to come. So can you let the listeners know, if they're not familiar, where they can find you, and what's your handle on Instagram?
I'm at food.love.family. You got to get the dots in there on Instagram. And I do have a website, which is foodlovefamily.com, no dots. It's a bit confusing, which just has some recipes, but mostly I'm on Instagram.
That is awesome. And I always love following you. And I especially love that not only do you see Saskia on Instagram, you might also see her in a farmer's catalogue coming to you soon, because she's still putting reps in there, because you're gorgeous. So thank you, Saskia.
I'm a 47-year-old.
No, it doesn't matter. What it doesn't matter about your age. This is the thing. You're gorgeous regardless of age. So,
Mikki, we should tell people that the printed version, the first print run is the 1st of June. Well, it's the 1st of June is for the PDF, but the 14th of June is when we're planning on doing the first print run. So if you do want a printed copy of the PDF, to order that in now, and we'll get the numbers up for the first print run.
That's right, actually, because when you order the print run, you get the PDF as well. So it's not that you have to wait for 2 weeks, but you are able to peruse and do it, and then you'll have it sent to you. Thank you for that, Saskia, for reminding me of that detail. See, details person. So we will put links to everything in the show notes. So you'll be listening to this on the Monday, so the book will be live, and you'll be able to order the cookbook, and we know that you're going to love it. So Saskia, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to the next few weeks.
Yeah, me too.